Hello learners, welcome back to the Learner's Deck. Today, we are going to understand a very interesting and thought-provoking lesson called Too Dear, written by Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy was a famous Russian writer and one of the greatest literary figures in the world. He is known across the world for writing realistic stories that explore human nature, society, morality, and justice. His stories often appear simple on the surface but carry deeper messages hidden through humor and irony. In this lesson too, Tolstoy presents a humorous situation to make readers think about government systems and the value of practical decision-making. The story begins in a tiny kingdom called Monaco, situated near the Mediterranean Sea between France and Italy. Tolstoy describes it almost playfully as a toy kingdom because of its extremely small size. The population was only around 7,000 people. Yet, despite being tiny, the kingdom tried to function exactly like a large and powerful nation. Monaco had everything that a great kingdom would usually have: a prince, a palace, ministers, courtiers, bishops, generals, and even an army. The amusing part was that the army consisted of only 60 soldiers, but the kingdom still maintained all the appearance and dignity of a powerful state. Like every country, Monaco needed money to run its administration. Therefore, the prince collected different kinds of taxes from the people. There was a tax on tobacco, a tax on wine and spirits, and a poll tax. However, because the population was very small, the taxes did not bring sufficient income. So the prince discovered another source of revenue. He allowed a gambling house where people played roulette. Earlier, similar gambling centers had existed in some European places, but governments later closed them because gambling was causing social damage. But Monaco continued allowing gambling. As a result, people traveled there to gamble and the prince earned a large share of the profit. Now the real story begins.
A few years later, something unexpected happened in this peaceful little kingdom. A murder was committed. Such crimes were extremely rare in Monaco, and the people were shocked because nothing like this had happened before. The government immediately took the matter seriously. The judges assembled with great ceremony and conducted the trial in the most official manner possible. There were prosecutors, lawyers, jurymen, and all the legal formalities that large countries usually followed. After hearing the case and discussing it thoroughly, they finally declared the man guilty and sentenced him to death. According to the law, the criminal had to be executed. The judgment was sent to the prince, and after reading it, he approved the sentence. Everything appeared normal until suddenly the ministers realized something important. The kingdom had sentenced the criminal to death, but they had neither a guillotine to carry out the execution nor an executioner to perform it. After discussing the matter, the ministers decided to contact the French government. France agreed but demanded 16,000 francs.
16,000
The prince was
francs?
shocked and rejected the idea. Then they contacted Italy. Italy offered the service for 12,000 francs. Even that was considered too expensive. Someone suggested asking one of their own soldiers to execute the criminal. But the soldiers refused because they had never been trained for such work.
After endless meetings and discussions, the ministers finally suggested changing the punishment. The death sentence was converted into life imprisonment. The prince accepted. Soon, another problem appeared. Monaco had no proper prison. Still, they somehow arranged a small lockup and appointed one guard. The guard had to watch the prisoner and even bring him food every day. After 1 year, the prince checked the accounts and discovered a new expense. The guard's salary and the prisoner's food cost more than 600 francs annually. The prince became worried again. The prisoner was young and could live for many more years. That meant the kingdom would continue spending money indefinitely. Another meeting was held. One minister suggested removing the guard and allowing the prisoner to escape.
The guard was dismissed. But what happened next surprised everyone. At mealtime, the prisoner quietly came out, went to the palace kitchen, collected his food, returned to prison, closed the door, and continued staying there. He never attempted to run away. The ministers finally called him and asked why he stayed. The prisoner explained calmly. He said that the kingdom had ruined his reputation and future. Once sentenced, society would reject him. He had become used to not working and had nowhere to go. Since the government had taken responsibility for him, it should continue. He refused to leave.
Once again, the ministers held discussions. Finally, they found one last solution. They offered the prisoner a yearly pension of 600 francs if he agreed to go away. The prisoner accepted on one condition, that the payment should continue regularly. The agreement was made. The prisoner left the kingdom, settled just across the border, bought a small piece of land, started gardening, and began living comfortably. Every year, he returned only to collect his pension. Sometimes he even visited the gambling tables, spent a little money, and peacefully returned home. Thus, the kingdom finally solved its problem, not by punishment but by paying the criminal. And that is how the tiny kingdom solved its expensive problem. Through this humorous ending, Tolstoy leaves us with an important message. The story is not really about a criminal. It is a satire on governments and systems that become trapped in unnecessary procedures and expenses. The title, Too Dear, means too expensive, because every solution became costly, and finally, paying the criminal became the cheapest option. Tolstoy reminds us that when decisions are guided only by money and not by practical wisdom, even justice can become absurd. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this explanation, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Learner's Deck. See you in the next lesson.